soft, firm, soft, firm, soft, firm. So you can see the level. Right?
I've been driving Jill all day.
Imagine.
Hey! It's Tim, Pickup Truck Plus SUV Talk. We're out here at Bilstein in Hamilton, Ohio. We have the high school team playing drums. We have a Ram T-Rex we're gonna jump. I got the 5'1" of the world, Jill Ciminillo, with me in Ohio. And yeah, we got lots to talk about. We just toured the factory. We saw a bunch of cool R&D stuff, things that we won't talk about. But we saw a lot of cool parts being built, a lot of shocks and stuff that's being built. Okay, let's talk about what Bilstein is. Bilstein is a specialty manufacturer of shocks. They do all sorts of different shocks for racing, you can see on the screen, to off-roading. The biggest thing to know is, I asked the CEO about this as well, you know, how big are they? Are they the Walmart? Are they the Dollar General? Where are they at in the retail space? And his answer was very clear. They're the Bose of the retail space, in that they're not going to make the most volume of all the competitors out there. They're not going to kill them with volume, but they're going to build the best quality and high quality shock absorbers that you can find in the marketplace. You see this throughout their press release: high quality, high quality. They do have a nice area where they do actually a lot of testing of stuff comes with line. They're checking shocks for problems. They actually, I'm going to show you some stuff on the screen. They're actually going to take cameras and check out shocks more than you actually can see from a consumer standpoint. It's pretty incredible. Bilstein, if you don't know, they do build the shocks to the Ram T-Rex. Spent a lot of time working on it. We thought come out and drive with the engineer and get an idea of what he did with it.
Yeah, and we actually have gone on this small off-road course here, and what's really cool about this truck is it is completely stock. So they did nothing extra other than, you know, tune the vehicle for you. So I think that's pretty cool that this is a completely stock vehicle, and we had kind of fun.
yeah. That was the highlight of the trip so far, I would tell you that. Okay, so we're in the T-Rex.
Been through this thing.
Yeah, this is the launch control. All right.
We're not going to be using launch control.
We're not going to be using launch control.
But this thing is just really badass.
Yeah, they're pretty sweet. Our custom mode is kind of comfort everything with like sport suspension. I like that the most. But your sport mode is going to be more for like the street.
Right.
Your Baja mode is certainly going to be more for like an off-road, like what we're going to be doing. And people think that like these things aren't different. We've tuned with Chrysler different computer like algorithm modes, so to speak. So like we've gone through, you know, in different type of driving scenarios and worked with them, and you know, we plugged into the computer and plugged into our dampers and fine-tuned a lot of the dynamic feel you feel. Like so sport on the street will feel like tighter, and it'll, you know, have like more influence when you're turning in to keep it from rolling over, stuff like that. But it might not feel so great off-road because it's going to be a little bit more firm than you'd want like in the Baja setting. So the Baja setting actually is nice because it tries to allow for a bit more isolation. And when you're out on off-road terrain and you're like sliding around and counter steering and stuff, you might be throwing the wheel around a little bit. In say sport mode, when you make changes to the wheel, it kind of firms up to kind of keep you level in a turn. But in Baja mode, it knows that maybe you're not turning, you're just trying to like counter steer and correct. So the steering doesn't have as much of an effect on like damping control in those two different modes.
So you guys really do test out each of the different modes, and each of the different modes you're testing out the different like stability, suspension, and steering. So in your case, you're doing suspension a lot, and then that's sending that spec off, and then somebody else taking it from there.
Yeah, but we're working, you know, with all the other systems. So we have the vehicles plugged into the dampers are, you know, plugged into the vehicle. It's like part of that whole ABS and steering and braking kind of system. So this right now, for example, steering. If this was a completely reactive system, like if it, you know, just looked at like ride height sensor or something like that, and it would notice like the outside of the vehicle is kind of dipping down, it might understand that we're in like a left-hand turn and that we're rolling over. But if I give the computer, like the damper computer, information from the steering rack and say, hey, we're steering to the left pretty aggressively, I can now tighten that outside compression on the damper's outside compression and the inside wheels on the rebound side, kind of even before the vehicle rolls over. So it's not like, it's still semi-active, it's still reactive, but because we're working with steering or braking or throttle, we can keep it from like dipping too hard when you're accelerating or nose diving when you hit hard on the brakes, because we can read all that information into the damper controller and then kind of predict what the vehicle's going to do and stiffen up the shocks in the front or the back or the left or the right, or you can kind of make those changes as you're making steering corrections or as you're hitting the brakes. So it's a bit smarter than people
I've seen it.
think.
So if you haven't been in a new vehicle lately, a lot of new vehicles, you don't like a bucking horse. You don't do this as much as you used to. You don't slam the brakes as much as you used to. I mean, remember being an older Tahoe or something, man, I was like, you know, I mean, it was like my nose went up. So these vehicles are much more planted, I should say.
And part of that is because of electronic damping, you know, and it's more making its way into the, you know, light truck and off-road truck market. Before it was like a luxury vehicle option only. You'd see these on S-classes and big Mercedes and BMW and American, you know, like Cadillacs and things like that, you know, because semi-active dampers were expensive and they were meant for, you know, keeping you isolated from the road, keeping your luxury car feeling luxury, but also being able to turn in and steer and you know, not fall kind of over on itself. Now we've taken that technology and just upsized it and put it onto a pickup truck because it works. Like we can instead of, you know, we can keep you having that isolated feel off-road where you'd want, like, you know, some isolation from hitting bumps and things like that, but you don't want it to flop over when you make a turn, because, you know, higher center of gravity, you're more likely to roll in this than you are like a Cadillac. So, you know, it's almost more important for a vehicle like this, I think. So all right,
and
we're really
said
happy with
that
it.
The TRX that we're in right now is completely stock, right?
Completely stock. Stock. Damper, stock ride height, stock exhaust note, everything like that. We've not done anything except given it 16,000 of probably the hardest miles any TRX has ever driven. We really like to ride this thing. So we're gonna go out. We'll start in kind of sport mode, maybe out off-road, so you can kind of see
the differences.
See the difference between the system. Our loop isn't too crazy, but it's still fun. It has its own.
So this is the boring part of your job.
This is not every day is my job fun, but days when I get to drive a TRX off-road, it certainly is. So this thing's a little tight because it's maybe meant a bit more for, you know, the road and the suspension and the way the steering is.
And what is your speed right now?
We're only going like 30.
Okay.
Well. All right, 60. This thing gets up to speed pretty quick.
Yeah, it does.
Now we're gonna I'll go ahead and put this thing into Baja mode.
Okay.
And it might be should be a bit more isolated, should be a little bit softer, and it'll allow a bit more.
Yeah, that definitely, you can feel the difference.
Yeah. This thing makes the best noises.
I know.
Bouncing around as much back here.
Yeah. It just, you know, it's still a stock truck, so there's still some limitations, and travel is king in off-road vehicles, as you guys probably know.
Right.
So, you know, we're still running in limitations of like factory suspension travel. Sarah's one to slide. Yeah, sure. Cut across the check our.
Yeah, I'm sure the farmer won't mind.
We're gonna check our jumps. We got a couple of. Let's see, because one of them is likely filled with water right now, and that's the fun one, unfortunately. Yeah, this is a little wet. It's like a dip kind of kicker.
Right.
And then we have another like two-sided jump that will pop on over this way. Let's see. Start slow. This is 20. Yeah, that's way too easy. We'll go the other direction. We're gonna hit the two-sided that way. We're gonna go on the two-sided one, so the one that's farthest from you. The kicker's too full of water, unfortunately. Well, unless you want, I can splash through it for a video. Okay, we'll splash through it for a video.
Oh, she really twisted your arm there.
Yeah.
Like, all right,
Okay.
twist my arm.
So, for those that think like drive modes are a gimmick, I mean, how wrong can they be?
For a vehicle like this, 100% wrong. I mean, we've tuned very specific suspension modes. I mean, not only hydraulically, the Stamper is set up for a very wide range of different types of terrain. But like, we've worked with Chrysler on different types of terrain, both off-road, on-road, through whoops on the street. I mean, even like in Los Angeles traffic, like this thing has gotten actual real world tuning. So, and at least with our suspension in this vehicle, drive modes make a difference.
Yeah. Okay.
And from the back seat, I can tell you, I can tell the difference back here.
Exactly. So we're gonna splash through some water.
Oh, that's never a bad time.
I know, I'm like, did you get him?
That should be a cool shot, I hope.
Yeah.
Then we'll do the jump on the other side.
Okay.
And then, especially with like, the other modes, the steering modes will change, with the different types of, with the different driving modes you have. And,
Yeah, I mean, I've noticed a difference driving it, but it's interesting to hear from you who's been out there testing it and actually set it up.
Transmission's a big one. Like in Baja mode, it'll hold gear for a lot longer.
Right. But so, a lot of stuff we learned from Bilstein. They've been building shocks for many, many years. Have a cool R&D center. They give us cool helmets, by the way, too. I feel like I'm skateboarding here.
I know.
But lots of cool stuff going on inside. So let's go ahead and show you some inside footage. But let's talk about what happened in Hamilton. And this kind of demonstrates the company's growth. So I found a few resources here. So Hamilton, in 2016, they opened up phase one of a $26 million, 60,000 square foot expansion. So this was their North American operations. This is the first time they started in Hamilton. They kind of grew the company, and they had this North American, North American headquarters. That was initial in 2016. Then business kept blowing up so much, they announced another expansion in December of 2021. This expansion was another $20 million expansion. And you can kind of see the plant here. So this is where we pulled in. Jill and I pulled in this parking lot over here, went through this door. We went in the main plant. So the little whatever airdrop or the signal of the main plant there. We spent some time in the Bilstein Technical Center, but you can see there's a long hallway underneath the P&L on the plant. That hallway connects the Bilstein assembly plant with logistics. So basically, the logistics is the shipping out portion of the plant. They build in the plant, they kick it through this tunnel across, and we'll show you some robots on the screen doing this work. They're autonomous forklifts, basically. And they get to the Bilstein Logistical Center. And so you can kind of see where that mark was above the BLC. This is what their terminology is for it. They had rented out half of that building, the big white building. And while we were there, they were expanding even more. They actually had a partner, and they leased from that company, that building space, and they were expanding out even more and taking more of the other person's building space because things were growing so quickly. And so they own the main plant building, they're leasing the BLC, and they asked the tenant to move over and give more space because they expanded so much as far as how this operations work. But in the main plant, we'll talk about in a minute, you'll see things, it was interesting to see, they call them cobots and robots. Cobots will work next to you, and a robot does all the work for you. So it's a little bit different setup there. So let's go ahead and talk about these videos I shot and show you what happens inside the plant. Okay, this is the image of cobot. So she's in there working, and you see this robot working around with her. So you see inside, that cobot, if you hear it all, it'll freeze and stop. So it's designed to work with her. On the right is more of a robot. Well, that robot is doing the job instead of the scanner. You can't get to it because it doesn't have the same. If I hit you on the top.
So they're all working together, fully integrated into the PLCs of the equipment as well.
They do a system much like Boeing does with their planes and different automakers do. They're actually magnetizing the sheet metal, and so the paint sucks to the sheet metal. And so, unfortunately, I don't think this was an operation when we shot it, but this goes up and down. A shock goes in. You can see the shock off his shoulder. That little spindle thing, they have shocks. It goes in, they magnetize the shock, and that paint gun goes up and down, and all the paint goes into the shock. Okay, here's more of the cobot doing its work, and looking at this, I'm going to pause it right here. So what this is doing is it's a quality control check system. So Drew Guthridge is a Bilstein CEO. He's helped me out and he has some knowledge on this. We're actually talking about something else, so I'm not going to play the audio. But if you look at the camera that above that cobot, again, cobot, what it does is it's taking that Bilstein shock, flipping it around and taking photos of it and scanning the photos for imperfections. So it finds any imperfections. And what it's looking at is looking at key spots that consumers actually notice problems in a Bilstein shock. Paint chipping in the red, or the sticker's not right, or things are not quite right. So the spots that you see the most and the spots it cares about the most in quality, it's really focusing on. Now, it's not to say it doesn't look at other stuff, right? So throughout the process, they look at quality issues throughout the chain of process. But when it gets to this point, really focusing on the sticker placements, the color, the paint, all that kind of stuff. And so we'll see it go. And I think that one gets rejected. You see the camera, you see that goes, so that one's going to go there, and then it goes in rejected pile. So the stuff to the left is something good, the stuff to the right is something bad. So let's do that one more time. So you can see there's a tray to the left, which is good. Tray to the right, I think needs to be redone. But you see that flash, takes pictures of it, and then analyzes it in the software. And then actually this is all part of a big mainframe too, and they can go back to the mainframe, they can see what's wrong, and they can pull up all these reports. They have it looks like ground zero of missile launch in that place. It's tons of screens on the wall and lots of people analyzing the screens. This is part of a durability testing. They're basically making the shock go along through design. And so, yeah, I kind of got the end of it, but you kind of get the gist. So one of the interesting things with that is they have really high standards, Bilstein does, and they'll do different automakers. And they told me that some automakers meet their standards, some automakers want the standard even higher, and some automakers don't need the quality standard to be so high. They actually want it down a little bit. They don't need it to be so high. So, but Bilstein builds their own standards. And so no matter what the automaker wants, what their specs are going to be as far as quality and durability, Bilstein has their own standard. And like I said, they've had automakers that don't quite need as much durability of that part, whatever. Bilstein says, nah, we're going to build it as quality as we can make it. So let's go ahead and head back to the video.
What I can do with this manual controller, and this is something that we set up on a lot of our demo vehicles, is we can put this thing from full soft to full firm, rebound or compression, and I can, add a level of manual control. So to these semi-active dampers, they have the magnets will close as I'm adding amperage, and thus make the ride firmer. So, but the fun thing to do with this one is to go kind of between the two modes, so you can see the level of change that we have between the two settings, between full firm and full soft. So we'll just do that real quick.
Okay. So this software, let's see, is cord hooked up to like the OBD2 port?
No,
or something?
we've wired a separate wiring harness in. So this is a completely aftermarket damper setup.
Okay.
And by aftermarket, I mean like we've taken all the Fox live valve stuff out and we've put our own DTHC stuff in, similar to the TRX. But because we have this manual, we have a completely separate damper. We have manual control over everything. So it'll make sense in a second. So when I do full soft in a truck like this, so this is as soft as the vehicle could ever get. It may be under controlled sometimes. I'm gonna go like kind of shimmy this thing left to right a little bit to kind of show you the roll, right? And then when I do firm, it tightens up.
Oh, really?
Right? So that's kind of like the level of control we have in just the damper. And we'll come back around and do that again. So you can imagine that, you know, it's like having a bunch of different dampers kind of in the vehicle at one time, and they're all kind of doing, the computer itself is choosing what it needs when it needs it. So this is a real fun one to do. So I'll do the same shake we were doing in full soft, and then I'll put it into full firm and then back into full soft. So soft, firm, soft, firm, soft, firm. So you can see the level. Right?
I've been driving Jill all day.
Imagine.
Hey.
So just.
This is smoother than when I drive.
The wheel motion didn't change at all. But you know that's the effect that dampers have on ride quality, of course, and roll and pitch and front to rear balance and stuff like that. And we have a huge amount of range. When we put this into one of our tuned modes, it'll kind of pick. Do I need more compression damping? Do I need more rebound damping? It's doing this like hundreds of times a second. So it's like, depending on the terrain, it's making its own choices.
Sure.
So, soft,
Okay, in this video, this is that hallway described between the main assembly building and the logistics center. And what we're going to see are autonomous robots that man these forklifts. And as we're gonna watch, they have GPS systems, they have sensors and things, and they basically go up and down all day long on this track. They're just moving the stuff that's finished manufacturing to logistics to get shipped out. What's really interesting about these are the lithium-ion batteries in these forklifts, and there's a charger up on the right-hand side, and they pull over and charge when they get down like 60, 70%. I think that's the number Drew was saying. So that way they keep fully charged, not going to spend all day to charge. They just kind of cycle through charging, cycle through delivering, and they
using several different sensors to figure out their location, predominantly this red halo on top. What they're able to do, because they're not on a wire, is if they encounter an obstacle, they're able to negotiate that obstacle. So they don't have to just wait for somebody to come and move something, they can actually move around.
That is super cool.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that's a really good use case for an autonomous
They just
system.
go back and forth. They just go back and forth.
Yeah.
The other thing that's cool about them is they're actually transacting in our ERP, so they're making transactions. They're moving inventory, not just physically, but in our system, into different locations.
So what he's saying there is they have like barcodes and things. So when it picks that up, that forklift recognizes the barcodes, it scans them in its system, and it goes back to their mainframe, and people can sit in the office and know that part is now being moved across. And like I said, these are autonomous. They're not on a wire, and so sometimes people would, drive forklifts back and forth on wires, and that way it's very kind of controlled. But these are not wired, which allows them to move out of the way if they detect something near them. And so it's kind of a lot safer. But you'll notice along the right-hand side there, you see a lot of yellow, and you see a lot of yellow things. Well, that's to keep people out, because these are robots again, not cobots. Yes, cobots. Robots, not cobots. Let's see what this next video is and cue it up. Okay, so now let's get into the logistics area of the warehouse. And as we come up here, you'll see. So what's interesting here is this warehouse is built in such a way where it's really narrow. Now, the idea is they can stack more in there as it's being more narrow. What's interesting with their system is Drew pays a lot of attention to other CEOs, and he figured out from like Amazon that they don't stock things on the same shelf every single time. So a couple things. First of all, they have a very kind of loose inventory system. They just put everything on the shelf when it comes in. That allows them to be able to update their systems. That way the system knows where stuff's at and the computer system knows where stuff's at. They don't have to keep stuff on the same shelf all the time, because the operator of these forklifts, you can see the little narrow one to the right here on the screen, operators of the forklift go in sideways, and the forklift lifts the operator up to get parts out. So like an aftermarket kit, somebody ordered a bunch of different shocks, different things we want to put together. The system will actually show on a screen. It'll say, go to this bin, go up 4 floors. Here it is on the right-hand side. And they'll drive over, they get that, and they go from there, and they come back down. And that system's so smart because it updates itself with the inventory to make that happen. And it actually maps out the best, most efficient route to get around. So they can make the warehouse more operational in that they can now have more narrower walkways. They can use the forklifts now to go up and down and get stuff out. And the other cool thing with this Hamilton, Ohio facility is that most warehouses are just square footage, but really it's square area that makes a big difference. And so you can see really high ceilings in this warehouse, which is pretty cool because it makes them be more efficient. So they can store stuff more efficiently. They can get stuff down more efficiently. Operators have more efficiency. And so it was really impressive to see.
All right, there we go. There's our details from today's event that we went to or planned stopped or whatever we're doing. Calling this.
You planned.
I planned. Yeah, I planned.
I'll give you the credit for that.
All right, I planned.
This is a really cool stop.
So what's your takeaway? What's your biggest takeaway from today?
Shocks are cool.
it's cool to see them getting built, though. I mean,
today in general was just really cool because seeing how they're built, all the detail that goes into it, the crowbots versus the robots were pretty cool. And I thought we also did a demonstration on the pavement in the Raptor, just kind of where, showing just kind of jerking the steering wheel a little bit and showing the difference between really soft and really, stiff shocks and the dampening and how much of a difference that makes. If you see me flopping around in the back like a rag doll, that was when it was really soft. But like when you stiffened it up, it was just very smooth and tight and sport-like. And it's amazing how much of a difference tuning to shocks and your dampers make.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. We talked to a lot of people on the channel and the comments and things, and they're always like, well, I'm just gonna go buy my new truck, I'm just gonna go buy new shocks for it. I'm like, no, hold on. These guys spend a lot of time working on this stuff, and you definitely don't want to switch things out. All right, so inexpensive shock, sure. But I think Bilstein, as I asked the CEO, I said, what do you guys Walmart, Dollar General? He goes, no. He goes, actually, we're like the Bose of shocks. We're trying to build the highest quality product we can. We may not be the most mass market out there, but we're going to do the best job.
Yep. Yeah. No, I thought it was all pretty interesting and fascinating. So I really hope you enjoyed spending time with us at Bilstein today. Be sure to check out the videos that we've got going on up here and over there.
We got videos here. I don't know. She's on the website, Pickup Truck Talk as well. She writes or something. I don't know what's going on over there.
Something like that. Sometimes he writes too. PickupTruckTalk.com. Also, be sure to check us out on Twitter and Instagram.
We got to hit the road. We got to hit northbound. As always, thanks for watching. We will see you down the road.